I'm Brad Hafford, archaeologist and field director at the ancient city of Ur. We are investigating how people lived in this ancient city, but I thought it might be interesting to show you how we live and work while we're investigating that. Agatha Christie wrote a book, probably her only nonfiction book, called Come Tell Me How You Live. She was married to Max Mallowan, and he was an archaeologist who worked right here at Ur. They met here and married not long after and went to work in Syria. So while she was working up there with him, she wrote this book about how they lived. And I found that very interesting. And one of the things we don't talk about a lot is what we do in the way that we do it. We talk a lot about the results, but not so much about how we do things. So I'm starting on the roof of our dig house, and in the distance, we have the ziggurat. So we've got a great view. We work here as well on the roof, and you can see that we've laid out a number of potsherds. This is how we sort them and try to understand the kinds of pottery that people were making and using. And these all have their tags. We know where they came from. It's a way that we can do some analysis after the cleaning and before we do even more typology on them. Well, of course, up here, we also hang our laundry and things like that. We've got big water tanks up here because, well, we go through a lot of water. So now we're going to walk down the stairs, always with a good view of the ziggurat. And that's one of the great things about working here is that we can see, well, we're right on the site. Our dig house is very near to the mound itself. So we get these great views. And in the evenings, particularly on Thursday evening, which is, well, that's the end of our work week. We work 6 days a week. So Friday's our day off. We really still work that day too, but not in the actual field digging. So on Thursday nights, we often sit up on the roof and we just chat. We tell stories about other digs or about this dig or whatever. So there are other outside spaces here, of course. We have some trailers that we can expand into for some living space. We also do our flotation back here. We take soil samples and we float them in order to find botanical remains. And that would tell us what people were growing and eating. So our float tanks are right back here. We wash the pottery around back, and then we take it up to the roof to dry, and we sort them. We bring down the diagnostics, and we type them inside the house. So now we're going to go into our primary workspace and see how we live there. Okay, so now we are in the workroom, and it's been redesigned recently. We used to have more space, but they needed some for the administration of the tourist site. So we've sealed off part of it, and we had a bigger workroom. Now we've got, well, a little bit smaller, but it's not so bad. You can see that we have a number of tables here. Each of us has our own space. We put our computers here, do our reports. We do GIS, map work, things like this. We draw artifacts here, draw pottery, etc. So a lot of activity happens here in the afternoons. In the mornings, of course, we're out actually digging. But we come back in here to do all this other work. Go through into other spaces. This is where our refrigerator is, of course, and we rely on that pretty heavily. We get into the corridor where we put artifacts on these shelves in different categories, ones that need to be photographed or to be analyzed or registered into their databases. We've got all sorts of things here already out, including some figurines and things like this that, and one of our very interesting finds this season, a Humbaba mask. Well, out in the courtyard, we do other work. We wash artifacts here. We also put some of our laundry out. We put some of the soil samples out to dry, the ones that float, so that we can analyze them later to see what the botanical remains in them are. So this house is designed something like an ancient house, really. Courtyard house is very typical of the ancient materials that we're digging, and the courtyard works very well because it lets air and light come in, and so we need that for this kind of building. High ceilings and the light, and it comes in through here. We often cover the windows because the sun is so severe, but we get a lot of light out there, and that's why we use it very much. So we have our pottery analysis tables here, so we spread things out and we do a lot of the typologies there. And then farther back, of course, we have our living spaces. I'm not going to go into actual rooms, but got bedrooms and bathrooms and things like that. One final thing about how we live, of course, we have to eat. So this is our kitchen. It's a bit smaller than our old kitchen, but it's not so bad. In fact, this whole house is pretty comfortable for a team of about a dozen archaeologists. When we get above that, we expand into the trailers and it gets a little bit more difficult, but it's not too bad. We can fit about 12 around our table here, so we can all eat dinner together. We've got stove and things back there. We just make coffee and tea. But the locals actually cook for us and bring in the major food, dinner and lunch. So that's pretty much how we live in this area. I hope you enjoyed the tour with me, and I hope you'll join me again on Artifactually Speaking. I'm Brad Hafford. See you then.